saying on behalf of his party, I wish His Majesty all the very best for a speedy recovery. Well, the King will begin a schedule of treatment and continue to undertake official paperwork, although his doctors have advised him to cancel public-facing duties. And he's chosen to share his diagnosis, Buckingham Palace officials told us today, to prevent any speculation and hoping it may well help all those around the world who are affected by cancer. Well, the other development that came to us today is that a source close to the Duke of Sussex says he's spoken with his father about the diagnosis and is due to travel to the UK to see him in the coming days. We understand Prince William and Prince Harry learned of their father's cancer diagnosis directly from the King himself. And in the United States, President Biden told reporters he'd heard about the diagnosis and planned to speak to the King later. Well, GB News has been onto the streets of London, gaining the reaction of the public. Here's what they had to say.
I think it's very sad. I think it's that, it's coming a year after the coronation. And so I think my thoughts are with him, with the family.
It's a bit of a shock. Like, I'm genuinely heartfelt thoughts.
That's so sad. I mean, you would think that of anybody, but I wish him well.
Well, I'm very sad to hear this, very sorry to hear, and I pray that he will recover, the treatment.
He's got to have the best doctors, he's got the best chance, age against him, rest up, boy.
London is reacting to the King's diagnosis earlier on. Well, in other news today, the latest developments in the hunt for suspected chemical attacker Abdul Azaidi. The Metropolitan Police saying today that a 22-year-old man had been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. GB News South of England reporter Ray Addison has the latest.
Well, Met Police saying now that the focus of this manhunt for Azaidi is well and truly on South London. He was last seen at 9:50 p.m. on Wednesday evening in the Suffolk Bridge area. Police releasing a CCTV footage of him there. A 22-year-old man, was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. That was suspicion of potentially helping Azaidi after the attack on Wednesday night. He was taken to a London police station but released this afternoon on bail. Police say as well they've been tracking Azaidi's bank card. That's not been used since Wednesday night. They say there's two possibilities for that. Either he's come to some form of harm or he's now being sheltered.
Addison reporting there. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
God save the King. It is devastating news that our King, Charles III, has a form of cancer. It is vital that our King knows the nation is behind him, spurring him on as he begins his treatment and for the long, difficult road ahead. This all comes amid a backdrop of Catherine's hospital admission, Sarah Ferguson's cancer diagnosis. The royal family has been Britain's strength and stay. Now it is time for us to do our bit. We came together when the Queen sadly passed. We came together for the coronation, and now we must come together again to support our dear King. Prince Harry is doing the right thing. He's coming home to be with his father. Prince William must be struggling immensely. This surely is a time for reconciliation. This surely is a time for the brothers to bury the hatchet. The King has chosen to go public with this diagnosis, this in part to raise awareness and help others, but also, no doubt, because it would become impossible to hide. We now need to make our love and support impossible to hide as well. Every single family in Britain, sadly, has to deal with cancer at some point. All the worry, the fear and the trepidation that brings. I hope that tonight, that worry, fear and trepidation reverberating around the corridors of Buckingham Palace is drowned out by public well wishes and support. Great Britain is the country of the bulldog spirit. We have overcome every single adversity the world has thrown at us, and I know our King will overcome this. God save the King. Let's cross now to GB News' royal correspondent Cameron Walker, who is at Buckingham Palace for us. Cameron, thank you very much. What do we know so far?
Well, Patrick, at 6 o'clock this evening, Buckingham Palace released a pretty lengthy statement confirming that the King has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. Now, it's understood that it is not prostate cancer. If you remember, a few weeks ago, he was in hospital receiving treatment for an enlarged prostate, which Buckingham Palace at the time said was benign. And it's understood that doctors, by treating the King for that separate condition, discovered something else. And that is why the King returned to London from Sandringham this morning to begin his outpatient treatment. So he is travelling to and from hospital, but then is staying at Clarence House. So he's not expected to spend the night at any hospital. But of course, it's not just a UK story, this actually. It's a pretty global event, and we've had tributes flooding in from across the world, most recently from President Joe Biden as well, who has sent his best wishes in the last few minutes. The media here are all from different countries. And then we had, about an hour later, this statement from a source close to the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, who not only heard of the King's diagnosis from the King himself, as well as Prince William, but he's also chosen to come back from the United States to be with his father at this time. So he's expected to arrive in London within the coming days, which suggests to me perhaps a bit of an olive branch and does really show that perhaps the King still really does love his son. And Meghan, as we understand it, is not expected to travel with him. She's going to stay in California with the two children. On the surface, a cancer diagnosis seems pretty scary. We're told that the King is grateful to his medical staff for catching it, and he's also pretty hopeful that perhaps it's been caught early enough, because we know that the King is going to be very much carrying on with duties behind the scenes. So although we're not going to see him in public, he is going to be carrying on, signing those government papers, reading cabinet minutes. It's understood he's going to continue meeting the Prime Minister weekly, as well as attend Privy Council meetings. So a scary diagnosis, but it looks like he's got the best possible medical care.
Absolutely. Cameron Walker, thank you very much, outside Buckingham Palace for us, our royal correspondent. Now, tonight I am joined by a very, very special panel to react to all of this shocking news. Editor-at-large and royal scoop-getter extraordinaire Charlotte Griffiths, former BBC chief political correspondent John Sargent, and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy, arguably the most patriotic woman in Britain. Now, just before I come to my wonderful panel, because we have a heck of a lot to pick through tonight, obviously this diagnosis itself, what that may mean. We're going to be talking as well about the role that it's going to play for William, what the nation will react to all of this as well, and of course that news that Harry is coming back. But before all of that, I just want to go straight to Princess Diana's former butler, confident Paul Burrell. Paul, you were diagnosed with prostate cancer last year, I believe. Now, the Palace have confirmed that the King's own illness is not prostate cancer, despite the fact that that's what he initially went in for, a procedure on his prostate. How do you think he'll be feeling at the moment?
I think he's feeling shocked the way we are to hear this news. I mean, first we're told that his condition is benign, and then we're told that he has some form of cancer. So it's very worrying. My thoughts are with the King, and I wish him a very speedy and full recovery. I know from personal experience, Patrick, that this impact is on the whole family, and in this case, it's on the whole nation. Millions are touched by cancer, as you know, and the King is no exception to this now. He's joined that club. But what he's doing is brilliant. He's using his condition to get to other people. He's using the platform for the best possible reasons. And it's changed a lot since the last monarchy, because I remember that no conditions were ever released by Buckingham Palace. They didn't talk about medical records. And many of us in our country are still blind as to what happened to our dear late Queen. So things have moved on a great deal since the Queen's passing. I don't think it's a time to panic, though, Patrick. It's not. I mean, people have said that he's continuing with his work behind closed doors, his government papers and things. And he seems to be in good spirits, and he's got the very best medical care. So, you know, I think he should lean on Princess Royal and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh and William to such an extent that he can to keep the show on the road.
Yeah, spare a thought for William as well. We've had Catherine in hospital by
Yes.
A very serious operation by the sounds of it. Obviously, we've got Sarah Ferguson, who's recently had a cancer diagnosis herself, some other issues affecting the royal family, which we don't need to go into this evening. A heavy burden to fall on William. And, of course, he will be greeting his brother Harry in the coming days, we believe, as well.
Yes, well, it's not William's time yet. He thought he'd have at least another 10 years to grow his family and to live a happy family private life with Kate at Adelaide Cottage and then probably Royal Lodge in the future. It's not his time. And I think this is a great burden for William to think about. With Harry coming back as well, well, listen, the King loves both his sons. When I was diagnosed with cancer, the first thing I thought about were my two sons. And I told them. The King has done the same. And quite rightly, Harry's coming back to show public face, perhaps, but then to support the King and his brother. And I think this could be the step we need towards reconciliation between William and Harry. Their father is ill. The two sons should come together to support the King, certainly in private, behind closed doors. This doesn't mean, of course, that Harry's going to start doing public duties in this country. That's not the case. He's coming because his father is sick. And that's what we all do, isn't it? We all rally. And this family know better than anyone how to rally together, how to pull the troops together, and how to carry on regardless.
He will be getting some of the best medical care, Paul. I mean, look, you will have had an insight into the kind of medical attention that the royal family receive.
Yes.
And I think, look, my first thought with this was, goodness gracious me, the King must be getting more medical checkups and at the highest possible level than pretty much anyone else in the country. And yet this seems like it was a shock finding. I mean, what kind of care do you think he'll be getting now? It does seem to be outpatient.
Well, it is a shock because once your prostate is looked at, there are other things in the region which people look at too. I mean, that is a very delicate area where your prostate is, and the urethra and the lower bowel, and all of those things could be a problem in later life. But what is good is the fact that they found it so early. Early diagnosis can save lives, not just in prostate cancer, but in any cancer. And they found something worrying and they're dealing with it, and he's being treated by it. And I think that's incredible that they've actually found it.
And Camilla as well now will also face a heavy burden. It's worth remembering her at this particular time, isn't it? How do you think she'll be dealing with this?
Well, I think she's the steady hand on the tiller, and she's the guiding force. And I think all this new movement of the Prince of Wales being the King being so open, I think it's down to Camilla. I think she is the stabilizer on the royal family's
So you think, Paul, that the reason why the King has gone public about his cancer diagnosis is because of Camilla?
I do. I think she has that touch. I think she's able to reach people in a way the King can't. And I think she's taught him a lot in the last few years about monarchy and how to be king. And isn't that odd, really, that she should come up through the ranks and be so supportive and such a stabilizing influence in our modern day royal family?
And you mentioned a little earlier there about Prince Harry doing the right thing, coming back. I think everybody agrees with that. I think that this is a moment for potential reconciliation. Do you think it's right that Meghan Markle is staying away?
Personally, I think she would confuse and cloud the issue if she came over. I think her best place is in America. She should stay there and look after the children. Harry will deal with this personally. He came over for the coronation by himself. He's coming over now to wish his father well by himself. I think that's going to what's happened in the future. It will follow this pattern. I think Meghan doesn't have much love of these islands, whereas Harry does.
OK. Just one final one with you, Paul. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Could you just issue a message to King Charles III, please? I mean, you have been through something relatively similar quite recently. You obviously know that family well. What would your message be?
My message to the King would be, you're in very good hands. We have the most incredible National Health Service in our country. You have the very best medical care. Put your faith in them and you will come through this and be back on the throne before you know it, and back to public duty. Just lean on the people around you. You will be tired at times, but take it in a pace and look at the people around you. They will support you, and the country will support you. And we want you to be well. We want you to have a speedy recovery, and God bless you.
Paul, thank you very, very much. That's Paul Burrell there, of course, Diana's confidant and a recent cancer survivor as well, just reacting to that news that King Charles does sadly have cancer, a form of cancer. The emails are flooding in at the moment. John says, we can only hope that doctors have found the King's cancer early on so he can make a full recovery, and we can only hope that all of his family have come together to support him at this difficult time. We as a nation and the world wish him well. We went out a little bit earlier on for Patrick Christys tonight and spoke to some members of the public, so we're going to be bringing you their well wishes very, very shortly. But still to come, Lady Colin Campbell joins me live to give her reaction to the King's cancer battle, including her take on how Harry and Meghan will support the monarch in the days ahead, plus what Queen Camilla will be doing to support her husband. All that and more from Lady C very shortly. But first, GP Dr. Lawrence Gurlis will be on to discuss Buckingham Palace's statement on the King and break down the medical possibilities for Charles in the days ahead. And, of course, I do have a special panel of royal experts with you tonight. Royal Scoop and editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, former BBC top political correspondent and editor John Sargent, and the most patriotic woman in Britain, Belinda de Lucy. So all of that and much, much more coming your way on Patrick Christys tonight. We are only on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
You have a president in President Biden who's not enforcing the law that was passed by Congress. President Obama, criticize him or not, actually enforced the law and was deporting people that had crossed illegally. Of course, President Trump enforced the law and improved the law to make sure that and worked with Mexico to have the Remain in Mexico policy. Biden has abandoned federal policy. In fact, he's deliberately trying to let in as many immigrants as possible. More for the Democrats, more is better and less is racist.
Just astonishing. And the statement that Greg Abbott put out is really feisty stuff. He said the federal government has broken the contract between the United States and the state of Texas. And in the eye numbers, Greg, are simply eye-watering. 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border in just 3 years, Governor Abbott says. That's more than the population of 33 states in the United States. Astonishing numbers.
And Martin, that's just Texas. If you add Arizona and other border states, you know, it's pushing 10 million. By the end of Biden's term, it'll be 11 million. A study by Yale University a few weeks ago, 3 very liberal professors that did the study estimate there's 22 million illegal aliens. So this is a crisis that was created by Biden. It's what he wants. They want unfettered access to the border. They're letting them in. It's a real hardship on the working people of Texas and other border states. And now it's a real hardship on cities that the federal government, as well as the governors of Texas and other states, are sending some of the migrants to those so-called sanctuary cities.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News. Now, Buckingham Palace has tonight made public King Charles's diagnosis of cancer, just over a week after his visit to a private London hospital for an unrelated prostate procedure. The King was then spotted looking quite frail at a church service in Sandringham yesterday before Buckingham Palace told the nation today. During the King's recent hospital procedure for benign prostate enlargement, a separate issue of concern was noted. Subsequent diagnostic tests have been identified as a form of cancer. His Majesty has today commenced a schedule of regular treatments. He remains wholly positive about his treatment and looks forward to returning to full public duty as soon as possible. I'm joined now by private GP Dr. Lawrence Gurlis to shed some more light on the medical hurdles that could be facing the monarch. Dr. Lawrence, when you look at this statement from the palace, what do you see with your medical hat on? What do you think we know about the King's problems?
Well, I think the most telling piece of information is that he's been advised to avoid public-facing duties. And I think you can infer what you like from that. But let me just go back, because I got it wrong. I had assumed he'd had prostate cancer. In fact, I've been assuming it for a couple of weeks, because nowadays we rarely do surgery for benign prostatic disease. So I was surprised anyway he was having an operation. I had assumed that they were keeping it quiet. And when the announcement first came out tonight, I wrongly assumed it was prostate cancer. So I've been wrong once, and it's difficult to speculate. But I'll throw it back to you, and I can let you do speculation. If he cannot be in public-facing situations, there's a reason for that, because his immunity will be affected, and that's going to be by the treatment that he's probably already having. Now, there's a whole range of possibilities as to what sort of cancer he's got, and it may actually be helpful if they release that information, because I think it is quite frightening. Listen, I wish him well. I'm sure he will do well. He's got the best quality medical care. There are a few mutterings on social media about, well, I wish everyone could have the same treatment. Now, that may be a little bit negative, but it does bring home to us how common cancer is, and I know we have friends being currently treated for cancer. This is a frightening time because the mere mention of the word just upsets people, and there'll be people watching this who need the reassurance and love that they're going to get first-class treatment in the way that the King is.
Yeah, Dr. Lawrence, when you go in for some kind of procedure that we believe the King did for an enlarged prostate, how common is it that they then find something else? Could you just talk us through that procedure a little bit, please?
Yeah, well, it would be common for most people. I'm just surprised that the King doesn't have regular blood tests and regular scans. And so I'm slightly surprised that this was an incidental diagnosis. Now, it may well be as a result of a blood test, or maybe he would have had a full-body CT scan, which has picked up something incidental. And I suspect it's one of those two. There's either a blood test or a CT scan has found something else. It's interesting that he's not going back for further surgery. He's being treated as an outpatient. I do have one or two ideas, but I just think it would be a little bit unprofessional at this stage to speculate, because as I say, I've already got it wrong once. I have one or two ideas as the sort of cancer he might have, and I just wish the palace would actually let us know, because I think that would be useful for us and for other people with similar conditions.
Just quickly, Dr. Lawrence, again, you're obviously very reluctant to name, and I think you're right to do that, by the way, what you think it might be in your professional opinion. But in relation to what you think it might be, do you think that the King has a relatively good chance of recovery in today's with modern medicine, etc.?
I would hope so. And prostate cancer is actually one of the better ones to have, but he hasn't got that. I would think that if it's one of given his age, he's 75, many of the conditions that are more serious, you can live for 10, 15 years. So I think he's got plenty of mileage left in him, and hopefully it's been caught early.
OK, Dr Lawrence Girl is there. Private GP, thank you very, very much. Now, we will welcome tonight's panel. We've got editor-at-large and Royal Scoop Getter Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. We've got former BBC Chief Political Correspondent John Sargent and former Brexit Party MEP and certainly a proud patriot, Belinda de Lucy. Thank you very, very much. John, how serious do you think this is?
Well, I think it is serious. I had the same operation for enlarged prostate a year ago, and I was surprised at the beginning when they said he might be in for 3 days. And I thought, that's a bit odd. I remember at the first night thinking, oh, I want to go home. And they said, look, just stay for another night. Now, for whatever reason, whether they were doing tests but not telling me what the results were, but I then left on the second night. I only had 2 nights. And I was raring to go home. And when Queen Camilla came out and said that the King was doing his best, I thought, that's pretty... So he's in for 3 nights, doing his best. I thought, well, that seems strange. And then you realise that by being open, which was, of course, marvellous, highly praised, he's open about these things, more open than when his grandfather had lung cancer and died, King George VI. People didn't know what it was. And, of course, this is strikingly different and impressive. But it does mean, inevitably, there's speculation. Because people think, what form of cancer? What are his chances? All perfectly reasonable questions. And all those, of course, I'm afraid, encouraged by this evening's statement.
Yeah, indeed. Charlotte, your views on the announcement today. We know that William will obviously be stepping up to the plate massively. As it stands, Harry is coming back. Meghan is not going to be with him. Your take on that?
Well, I think probably he's right to leave Meghan behind. We don't know for certain she won't come, by the way, but they omitted her name, so it's pretty likely. And I think it's going to be difficult for William, to be honest, because with Harry around, of course he's going to have to talk to Harry. I mean, this is a man he literally has not said a word to for months and months and months. But I think it'll be very reassuring for Charles to have Harry there. And I think when cancer comes up in a family, you do kind of forget those arguments. At least for the time being, those will all be set aside. And I think that it could be a really good moment. That could be the only silver lining here, is that it could be a really good moment for their relationship as a father and son. But it'll be tremendously difficult for William.
Belinda, what do you think this means for Britain? I think the health and success of the royal family is intrinsically linked to the health and success of the nation. And this is devastating news, but what's your take on what this means for Britain? Is it a moment for us to all come together, do you think, again?
Very much so. You know, for me, the royal family, the monarchy, is a physical embodiment of the flag. They're part of our national identity. It's like having our flag walk among us and uniting us all against a great symbol. And I think for millions, the royal family is also somewhat of an extension of their own family. When they're in pain, when they're suffering, we feel it more than, say, you know, distant politicians. I think it's the envy of the world having a monarchy. And the reason I'm so protective of the monarchy is because I have a deep appreciation of how lucky we are having this ancient institution instead of a politician. And in the same thread you were talking about, Charlotte, in terms of cancer bringing family together, my father, who hadn't spoken to his twin for 30 years, they did not get on at all, got a phone call a few years ago out of the blue from his twin to call him up and to tell him he had prostate cancer and to go and check it. And my father did, and he did have prostate cancer. And that olive branch between the two twins after 30 years actually brought them, closer together and saved my father's life.
Wow, that's a really, really interesting story, actually, and something that hopefully, this royal family now can come together as a result of this. John, do you think it's a mistake to go public? The Queen didn't, did she?
Yeah, no, I think it's very difficult in modern terms, because people, as I say, the moment you know he's going in, you want to know what it's about. And everyone is concerned then, particularly in Charles's case, because the King has waited for so long to be king. He's prepared for it. We've all been prepared for it in terms of the family. It's very much something that, this is why I think it touches everyone so closely, because we know him. We've known him for years and years, and we've known how much it means. 17 months after after his coronation, then told that he's stepping back from his public duties. Now, we know that there'll be the boxes and the audience with the Prime Minister every week, but it's not the same. This is a very worrying period. And they're saying that he's going to have a schedule of treatments. Yeah, it's a treatment schedule, which implies that he's going to be on drugs or something regularly. It's going to be a very unhappy period.
No, it is. Go on, Charlotte.
Well, I was going to say, he's worked so hard, and we've all been praising him for a year for A, doing a great job, and B, working his socks off. And, you know, his wife has said he really should slow down, and we've all said, ha, he really should slow down. Well, actually, he really should have slowed down, and I really hope if he comes through this, he takes a real step back and doesn't work quite so hard till 5 in the morning every single night.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. I just want to say that we went out and about a little bit earlier on, and we were speaking to, you know, ordinary members of the public about the King and about their well wishes for him as well. I mean, this is a story that absolutely rocked the nation, so we're going to go to those very, very shortly. But I'll just tell you what's coming up as well, because it is the story that has rocked the nation. How will the British press be covering news of King Charles's cancer battle? How will they be behaving in the days to come? Fleet Street legend Kelvin Mackenzie gives his expert reaction to perhaps the biggest news story of the year very shortly. And, of course, the political reaction as well. Rishi Sunak has spoken. We've got Keir Starmer who's spoken about it. And we'll be comparing and contrasting Donald Trump and Joe Biden's responses. Radically different responses there from those two individuals. But first, it has been reported tonight that Prince Harry is set to board a flight to London and accompany his father amid his cancer battle, while Meghan Markle stays at home in the US, taking care of their children. Lady Colin Campbell joins me next to give her forensic royal analysis on what is a monumental development for the monarchy today.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Elon Musk has announced that the first patients to receive a groundbreaking brain implant from Neuralink is recovering well.
This is all a bit odd. The product, called telepathy, uses a robot to surgically place a computer chip in a region of the brain that controls movement.
Yes, Elon Musk says that the first goal is to enable people to control a phone or a computer just by thinking. He says that initial tests show promising signs of brain activity, meaning that patients with paralysis could one day overcome their conditions.
Not sure about this one. Joining us to discuss this breakthrough is applied futurist Tom Cheesewright. Tom, this sounds, well, slightly terrifying.
I certainly think a lot of people will be thinking this is something out of a sci-fi horror rather than reality. But this is a technology that's been a long time coming. We've been developing direct brain-computer interfaces for a long time, mostly for the sort of therapeutic reasons that are the initial goal, at least, of Elon Musk's Neuralink, to allow people who are perhaps quadriplegic to have direct control via their brains of initially a smartphone and maybe ultimately artificial limbs or a wheelchair.
It does seem fascinating how quickly this technology is moving on. I saw demonstrations perhaps a year or two ago of people playing a very simple Pong game just by thinking, moving sort of one line on a screen up and down. This seems like potentially there has been a breakthrough that means far more complex things can be controlled just by thinking.
Well, there's lots of different aspects to this technology. The initial attempts to interface with the brain used actually quite thick prongs almost that went into the brain, and they were quite solid, and so if the brain moved, they could potentially cause damage.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, news of the King's cancer diagnosis has rocked the nation. We got the thoughts of everyday Brits who paid tribute to the monarch and wished him well for the long road ahead.
Yeah, well, listen, early diagnosis is the important thing. And if they've done that, then it's going to be good news for him, hopefully, and he's going to get the best treatment than anyone can get. So hopefully, Charles has got a little bit left in him yet.
We wish you well, speedy recovery, hopefully.
Well, terribly sad, yeah, of course, yeah. You know, wish him all the best. I probably suffer from the same problem, you know. I think they are overworked and lots of expectation.
Yeah, I think it's due to stress.
You think he's been overworked?
No, I think it's family stress. Because there's only so much people can take.
Now, so far tonight, we have, of course, had the views of a medical professional. We've also spoken to Paul Burrell to try and get the inside track of how the royal family themselves will be dealing with it, and a lot of journalism's top pundits about the media reaction and what we can expect going forward. But now, the King's son, the Duke of Sussex, will be flying back to the UK in the coming days to visit his father and offer support. However, the office of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have tonight confirmed to us here at GB News that his wife Meghan Markle will stay in the United States, leaving Harry to travel alone. I'm delighted to be joined now by royal author and commentator Lady Colin Campbell. Lady C, thank you very much. Great to see you, although, of course, it is depressing circumstances. What do you make of Harry coming home to see his father and brother?
Well, I don't think he's coming to see his brother, but I'm delighted to see that he's doing the decent thing and coming to see his father. And, you know, I would say the only temptation for the family is to forgive and forget and not understand that leopards never change their spots. But I'm delighted that Meghan is coming, because that would have added a whole different awkward dimension to the whole situation. And as one of your men just said, you know, a lot of this is stress-related. And I think the King can well do without any drama.
All right, I mean, I think it's obviously a good thing that Harry is coming back, and surely this is an opportunity for reconciliation now. I mean, I think most people will absolutely agree Prince Harry definitely doing the right thing here. If something can bring them all together, surely it's this, Lady C.
Well, I think it is a good opportunity for improved relations. I also speak from personal experience that the mistake people make in a situation like this is to think that a leopard changes its spot. Leopards don't change their spot. As long as Harry and Meghan are together, there is no possibility of a genuine rapprochement between his family and him and his wife. So I think, though, that it will be a very nice thing for the King to have, because the King, I've always said, he loves Harry, and he would like to see that he and Harry mend fences. And I'm delighted to see that Harry is doing the decent thing. But the danger is to expect the leopard to change its spots.
OK, now, can we have a little word on Camilla, please? Because this will have rocked everybody behind the scenes, Lady C, won't it? And, I mean, I know that you're aware of everything that goes on around the corridors of Buckingham Palace. Well, what will be happening with Camilla now, do you think?
Well, of course she's going to be worried, you know. But they've caught it early, and, you know, it's an inadvertent catch. And you know, as long as he gets good treatment, hopefully everything will be okay. I mean, these things are never 100% certain, but he will have the very best medical treatment on earth, and hopefully everything is going to be okay. And of course she's going to be worried. She loves him very much.
OK. And look, what do you think about the fact that the King has gone public with this? There was the initial announcement that he was going in for treatment on an enlarged prostate, and then this announcement today that he has a form of cancer. What do you read into that?
Well, I'm trying to respect the fact that the King doesn't actually want anybody to know what the form of cancer is. I mean, as you might know, there have been announcements made as to what it is not, but I would prefer not to be drawn on what it might be, because, you know, it's an invasion of his privacy, and as long as he doesn't want to reveal it, I think we should respect that. He has already revealed that he does have cancer and that it was caught during the investigation with regard to his prostate. So, I mean, if people add up 2 and 2, they will come up with 4 or maybe even 5, but they're not going to come up with 27. And you know, I think we just leave it at that. And you know, I think the King will keep everybody abreast as and when it is necessary. And I think we should give him space. I mean, you know, the man is 70-something years old. He worked like a slave constantly. And I think he's had the most awful time of it, not only in terms of having succeeded his mother, which he's done very well with, but, you know, he's had all of the stresses and dramas to do with Harry and Meghan, which have helped nobody at all. Okay. And hopefully Harry and Meghan will now take their foot off that accelerator so that the car will not continue.
Well, hopefully, Lady C, this is something that can bring people together, like with many families in times of great adversity. I'm really grateful for you coming on tonight, and thank you very, very much. That is Lady Colin Campbell. Now, joining me live in the studio, social commentator and GBNews regular, is Albie Amankoni. Now, Albie, thank you.
Good evening.
Very much. Great to have you in the studio. Now, Prince Harry will be obviously coming back to visit the King without his wife or his 2 children, as we understand it. But I saw that you tweeted something earlier on, branding the ongoing separation between King Charles and his 2 grandchildren cruel. Could you tell me a bit more on that, please?
Well, I think, like everyone in the country, I was shocked and saddened to hear the news about King Charles III earlier on today and his cancer diagnosis, and I commend him for being public about it, and I hope it does encourage more men to be open about their health struggles. But on the point about Prince Harry coming, I think that is a good thing. It is absolutely a good thing. But I think it is cruel and wicked, in a sense, for grandchildren to be separated from their grandparents for no apparent reason. And I would implore Prince Harry to be bringing along those 2 grandchildren, who I'm sure the King loves very much, over to the United Kingdom to get to know and love their grandfather, the King. Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, it would seem, barely even know him and might not even remember him if they don't get the chance to meet him soon.
And you think that would be, again, another wonderful opportunity, really, for this reconciliation? And it's important as well to frame this in, you know, the tone of this is I think everyone wants reconciliation. Nobody has enjoyed the kind of division and the hatred and the disagreement that we've seen spill out everywhere in the royal family at the moment. And it is something that comes up time and time again, and comes up time and time again in the GB Views inbox as well. I will go to that shortly, which is about, you know, Surely Prince Harry's kids have got to get to know the King at some point.
Well, speaking from personal experience, Patrick, one of the most important relationships in my life has been the relationships that I have with my 2 living grandparents, Yao and Elizabeth, one of them 87, the other well into their 90s now. And I think it has been such a privilege and an honour to know them, when I know that there are so many other people who never got the chance to meet their grandparents because they were no longer with them when they were alive. And with Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, they have grandparents that are alive, but they're not in touch with them. And I just can't help but feel that is desperately sad. And I really do hope that this can be a chance of reconciliation. And I really do hope that Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet can get to know their family here in the United Kingdom.
Albie, thank you very, very much. Really great to have you on the show. That is Albie Amankoni there, who will be on the Saturday 5 every single Saturday. What time is that again, Albie?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock every single Saturday. There we go. Look, coming up, more expert analysis on the way as I dive deep with former director of the World Health Organization's cancer programme, Professor Karol Sikora, who will give his take on King Charles's cancer battle. But next, Former Sun editor Kelvin MacKenzie joins me live to lift the lid on what will be going on with newspapers at the moment. How will they be handling this seismic news story from Buckingham Palace? What will be going on there? And a bit on the political reaction as well. I'll be telling you what Sunak has said, what Starmer has said, what Biden and what Trump have said. Stay tuned. It's Patrick Christys tonight, only on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
I appreciate the story isn't in today's papers, but it has been running all week, and it's this row over the use of nitrogen hypoxia to kill this man who was on death row in Alabama. And it's been linked back to you, and I wanted to ask you about it because this is intriguing, because you did a television show back in 2015 where you, I believe, tested this method of execution. Just tell me briefly about it, Michael. What happened?
I didn't test this method of execution, and it was a bit longer ago than that. But what I did do was test hypoxia. So I tested various ways in which people are killed in the United States, and asked the question as to whether there was a more humane way of doing it. So I was put into hypoxic situations, for example, into a chamber run by the Netherlands Air Force, which simulated what happens if you're in an aircraft at 30,000 feet and suddenly the windows blow out. And what happened to me was that I was almost instantly rendered incapable. As an experiment, I was trying to play with children's toys, putting triangle shapes into triangle spaces, and I was quickly unable to do that. I was asked, what is 9 minus 5? And I said 5. And then the officer who was with me, the Air Force officer who was wearing an oxygen mask, said to me, Michael, put your mask on or you will die. And I was incapable of putting my own mask on. Now, this suggested that hypoxia was very fast acting, and that you had... Obviously, I was in no pain or anything like that. I was just completely unaware. By the way, this is why, if you're on an aircraft and it depressurizes, you must put your own mask on first. But of course, I can't go on and draw conclusions. We did not experiment with nitrogen. But what I can say is it was evident to me that hypoxia renders you incapable almost instantaneously.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight. We are only on GB News. As we've been hearing already, the nation, of course, is reeling from the news tonight that King Charles has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. But some just can't help themselves from taking a cheap shot at the monarch, with academic and broadcaster Lisa McKenzie writing, "What an insult to all of us that the King can get an immediate diagnosis and treatment for cancer while people sit and suffer on NHS waiting lists for years." I'm joined now by the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin MacKenzie. Kelvin, what do you make of it? This is, by the way, doing the rounds a lot on social media at the moment.
It's what you'd expect, rather revolting people having a view. The most important person, the continuum of power in our country, has been the royal family. And honestly, we all love the Queen, and bizarrely, now we all love Charles and we love his Queen. It's a very strange... There are a percentage, and one of the great things about free speech is that these horrible people can have this view, but they don't represent anything. And what they like doing, they know full well that if they tweet it or WhatsApp it, they know that their minority view will get publicity. So, anyway, nobody takes...
Is it right that we have a hierarchy? You know, this is the thing for me. When you look at any kind of nature documentary whatsoever, there is a hierarchy in the animal kingdom. Now, people might loathe it about humans, but we have a hierarchy. The king is right at the top of that. He should be getting, should he not, the best care, even if that means better care than anybody else. Why do we have to level down for the king?
Oh, yes. No, I totally agree, and we want him. And the alternative to not having King Charles and being right up there is actually a President Heseltine or in the old days, a President Prescott. We don't want that, right? What we like it works. How much is that worth to us as a country, as a tourist attraction? It's worth billions to us. So, you know, when there is a serious issue like this, actually, the country... I have a kind of a stepdaughter who's like 26, 27. She's quite shocked about all this. And I think so. I think it transcends generations.
All right. Can I just ask you, with your Fleet Street cap on now, the fact that he's gone public, this is a feeding frenzy for the British press, is it not?
Less, actually, strangely, less so than it would have been 30 or 40 years ago. Because what would have happened 30 or 40 years ago is that the journalist would have identified, A, what cancer it is, and published that. And that would have been part of the kind of tabloid culture. You do that today without the permission of the people involved, right, you will suffer a huge commercial effect. And so, for instance, Princess Kate, nobody has ever said, actually, this is what this is. And they don't do it because people would stop either reading their news digests or reading their papers. The world has changed.
Yeah, the world has changed, definitely. I mean, back in the day, they'd go into the hospital and all.
Well, I mean, at the Sun, they used to hang up a white coat there, and whenever any big story involved a hospital was on, the reporter would put on the old white coat and the stethoscope and be down outside King's College Hospital before you could turn around.
It's remarkable how things have changed, isn't it? Now, look, Kelvin, politicians have been reacting to this news. Rishi Sunak wishing His Majesty a full and speedy recovery. Sir Keir Starmer also sending his good wishes to the monarch on behalf of the Labour Party. And the news has made it across the pond, Kelvin, because writing on his social media platform today, Truth Social, Donald Trump said, all in caps, King Charles has cancer. He is a wonderful man who I got to know well during my presidency. We all pray that he has a fast and full recovery. And asked about the King's cancer diagnosis during a trip to Las Vegas, here is what Joe Biden had to say, the president.
How's it King Charles? Glad to call. I'm concerned about him. Just heard his diagnosis, but I'll be talking to him, God willing.
Kelvin, I'll be talking to him, God willing, says Biden. I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Biden is not obviously very quick on the uptake. He doesn't know how to do the basic things well when you're basically the leader of the Western world. And look, he didn't mean to be disrespectful. It didn't come out very well. But the trouble with Biden is that virtually nothing ever comes out very well, and it's a big problem, I think, for the West when we have to listen to that.
Yeah, no, OK. And firstly, lastly, I should say, just a message for you from, to you from the King. What do you think? What do you think, would you like to say to King Charles now, really, and the royal family?
Well, look, look what's happening in the royal family. We've got Princess Kate, obviously not in great shape until the Easter. You've got Charles. Andrew is clearly not going to be able to fill the gap, right, for obvious reasons. You've got Harry not bringing his missus and his children over. Now, that is a really strange decision, because all it does is it continues to focus the spotlight on the difficulties. There aren't a lot of members of the royal family who can fill in for Charles. And, they're going to have to deal with it. So instead of after all, Charles wanted to reduce the size of the royal family. Actually, we may not have enough to open various things.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Kelvin, thank you very, very much. That is the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie. Now, royal author and journalist Phil Dampier has been ahead of the game when it comes to breaking massive royal scoops over the years. He is here live shortly to give us the lowdown on what this all means for the monarchy. Plus, former director of the World Health Organization's cancer programme, Professor Karol Sikora, gives his take on King Charles's cancer battle and what the road ahead looks like for the monarch. Make sure that you keep it GB News here. We'll also be going live to Buckingham Palace for the latest with our royal correspondent Cameron Walker, and we will, of course, be hearing from the views of the ordinary British public. It's Patrick Christys tonight. We're only on GB News.
warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, Alex Burkle here again with your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst for many, especially in the south, it's going to stay mild as we go into tomorrow, further north we have some colder air pushing its way southwards. That's coming in behind a front which has been lingering across Scotland for a little while now and has already brought some significant rain. That heavy persistent rain is going to continue to edge a little bit further southwards overnight, pushing into southern Scotland, northern England and also Northern Ireland too. To the north of this then, that colder air, and so we are likely to see some showers turning wintry and some icy patches first thing Tuesday morning. A cold start here, much milder further south, a cloudy picture keeping temperatures up overnight, many places starting the day in double figures. As we go through the rest of the day on Tuesday, that rain continues to feed further southwards, spreading into more central parts of England and across Wales, where the rain could be pretty heavy at times. Staying drier further south, though largely cloudy. Any sunshine is going to be pretty limited. Sunnier skies further north across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, though watch out for a scattering of wintry showers and a real north-south split in our temperatures. Mildest in the south, highs of around 14 or 15 Celsius. Wednesday's looking like a largely dry but rather chilly day. However, as we go into Thursday, the potential for a system to push into cold air across the UK, bringing the risk of some significant snow. There is some uncertainty as to exactly where and when we're going to see the heaviest snow, but at the moment it looks most likely across central parts, and we do have a warning in force, with many places seeing a chilly feel.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Are you across this microaggression story?
I'm across microaggressions. I'm also across XL bullies.
You would not last 5 minutes.
Oh, for God's
So
sake,
basic-
civil servants, give me strength.
So civil servants have been taught not to roll their eyes, something you do very well. We both do it quite a lot, actually.
Because it's seen as an act of microaggression. This, by the way, this costs the taxpayer, this
Yes?
training, £160,000. What the hell is going on in our woke civil service? Who cares if someone rolls their eyes in exasperation?
What the hell is going on in our civil service, full stop, if the way that civil servants are communicating with each other is rolling their eyes and looking at their phones? I mean, is the government being run by people who are essentially acting to each other like stroppy teenagers?
Yeah.
But I'm all right with people, because, you see, I would be in defence of eye rolling.
So me too, I couldn't care less.
But do you know why? Because I want people to give me their genuine reaction, as long as it's not deeply offensive. But I want to know how people feel. And what they're being told here, civil servants are being taught, and of course this is an area of employment law, because people are taking cases against their bosses who roll their eyes at them. They're saying they're being encouraged to say nothing and nod their heads to promote transparency and inclusion. Don't show what you really think, just nod your head.
But I think that comes with then saying what you really think, and this is the key problem, and what these courses are trying to establish. And I looked into some of them when I was researching this, and it's not saying hide what you're feeling. It's saying, rather than huffing and puffing and rolling your eyes, if you've got a disagreement with someone, say I've got a disagreement with someone. Because otherwise, you can't have an effective workplace if people are sort of just passively, aggressively huffing at each other.
Why do these civil servants need to be taught this? Why do people need to be taught this? This is just normal discourse in a normal working day. You don't need a seminar on it.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, King Charles III has cancer. Here's Buckingham Palace's statement for you. It is not prostate cancer. But what is it? Ex-World Health Organization cancer expert joins me next. And we are live at Buckingham Palace for the very latest with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Also, Harry's coming home. Meghan is not with him. I speak to Meghan Markle's brother later this hour to find out what's going on there. Plus, what does this mean for William? Kate's recovering. His father has cancer. Please spare a thought for him. I will have all of tomorrow's front pages today for you as soon as they come out. And on my panel tonight, it is royal scoop getter and editor at large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, ex-BBC political chief and titan of the game, John Sargent, and the most patriotic woman in Britain. It is Belinda de Lucy. And the public send their best.
It was good that he's advertised it and he's put it out there for everyone else to see. Get better soon. Thank you for broadcasting it.
Oh, well, there we go. Look, get ready, Britain. Here we go. The latest on King Charles's cancer diagnosis, next.
The main news on GB News at 10 o'clock. As you've been hearing, King Charles has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. The diagnosis came after successful treatment for an enlarged prostate, during which a separate issue of concern was discovered by surgeons. Many have been wishing him well online. The Prime Minister wishing the King a full and speedy recovery and saying he'll no doubt be back to full strength in no time. And the Labour leader today, Sir Keir Starmer, saying on behalf of his party, "I wish His Majesty all the best for his recovery." Well, the King will begin a schedule of treatment and will continue to undertake official paperwork, although his doctors have advised him to stand back from public-facing duties. Buckingham Palace has said the King is feeling wholly positive about his treatment. Well, in the other development this afternoon, a source close to the Duke of Sussex says he's spoken with his father about the cancer diagnosis and will now travel to the UK to see him in the coming days. We understand Prince William and Prince Harry learning of their father's cancer diagnosis directly from King Charles himself. In the United States, President Biden has been telling reporters he'd heard about the diagnosis, wished the King well and planned to speak to him later. Now, GB News has been on the streets of London asking Londoners how they felt upon hearing the news.
I think it's very sad. I think it's that, it's coming a year after the coronation. And so I think my thoughts are with him, with the family.
It's a bit of a shock. Genuinely heartfelt thoughts.
That's so sad. I mean, you would think that of anybody, but I wish him well.
Well, I'm very sad to hear this, very sorry to hear, and I pray that he will recover, the treatment.
He's got to have the best doctors, he's got the best chance, age against him, rest up, boy.
Londoners reacting to the news of King Charles's cancer diagnosis a short time ago. Well, just time for one more story tonight. A manhunt is still on to catch suspected chemical attacker Abdul Azadi tonight. The Metropolitan Police saying that a 22-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. GB News South East of England correspondent Ray Addison has the latest.
Well, Met Police saying now that the focus of this manhunt for Azadi is well and truly on South London. He was last seen at 9:50 p.m. on Wednesday evening in the Suffolk Bridge area. Police releasing a CCTV footage of him there. A 22-year-old man, was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. That was suspicion of potentially helping Azadi after the attack on Wednesday night. He was taken to a London police station but released this afternoon on bail. Police say as well they've been tracking Azadi's bank card. That's not been used since Wednesday night. They say there's two possibilities for that. Either he's come to some form of harm or he's now being sheltered.
Ray Addison reporting there. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome along to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, the nation is, of course, reeling at King Charles III's cancer diagnosis. I'm going to take you straight away to Buckingham Palace, where our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, is for us. Cameron, thank you very, very much. What's the latest, please?
Patrick, at 6 o'clock, Buckingham Palace released a statement confirming the King had been diagnosed with a form of cancer. Now, it's understood it is not prostate cancer. A few weeks ago, he was in hospital receiving treatment on an enlarged prostate, which the Palace told us was benign. But this is a separate issue the doctors found when dealing with that one. He's being treated as an outpatient, which means he'll receive hospital treatments, but then will come home to Clarence House in the evening rather than stay overnight in hospital. In other news tonight, tonight. The Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, he has spoken to the King about his diagnosis and is now making plans to come to London and leave his wife and 2 children at home to be with his father, the King. Prince William, as is understood, as always is the case, is in constant contact with his father as well. The King is still well enough, we're told, to carry out constitutional duties, going through those government's red boxes, signing official government papers and attending Privy Council meetings and his meeting with the Prime Minister that happens every week. Buckingham Palace are really keen that they don't want lots of people speculating about the diagnosis, but it's a real balancing act for Buckingham Palace because on the one hand, the King is a private individual who has a right to have medical details private. On the other, he's head of state, and it is a legitimate public interest that we should know about the King's diagnosis. Of course, it emphasises the fragility of this slimmed-down monarchy. We've now got the King and the Princess of Wales out of action for some time. The King will not be doing public engagements for quite some time, but he remains positive, we're told by Buckingham Palace this evening, and is looking forward to returning to public duties as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. That's Cameron Walker there, our royal correspondent outside Buckingham Palace for us. Look, joining me now to react to the news that the King has cancer is the former director of the World Health Organisation's cancer programme, Professor Carol Sikora. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. Tremendous to have you on the show. What do you make of what we've been told so far, in your professional opinion?
Well, it's a bit of a medical puzzle, as you know. He goes into hospital nearly 2 weeks ago with a benign condition of the prostate. Clearly something's been found. Whether it's been found on the biopsy, that's the most likely thing, when the tissue is removed from the prostate to essentially decoke the outlet of the bladder. That's been sent for pathology. It takes about 10 days to get the result because it requires special stainings, some cases molecular analysis. And that's come back, and it's obviously showing cancer. The likely sites could be bladder, or it could be in the lymph nodes around that area. We just don't know. The good news for the King and for all of us is that clearly they'd have done tests to look and see if there was any involvement of the liver, lungs and bones before they did the surgery anyway, just routine. Everyone would get the same on the NHS, no problem. And clearly, it was negative before. So it is, as we've heard, a problem for the palace, how open to be when maybe no one's really sure at the moment. More tests may be needed, and certainly some sort of treatment is going to be needed. I suspect radiotherapy is being planned.
Because that is something that the palace have put out as well, saying that he is going to avoid and postpone public-facing duties. What do you read into that?
I suspect he's going to have a course of treatment, probably, as I say, radiotherapy, to somewhere in the pelvis, down the bottom there, the bladder. And the chances of success are high. You know, as you get older, and I'm the same age as the King, the cancer tends to grow more slowly. It's a puzzle. We don't know why, but it grows more slowly. And, you know, the chances of having a normal lifespan are great. I think he'll do well. He's a great believer in openness, as we've seen. I think the problem at the moment is not hiding anything. It's just uncertain what's happening. And I'm sure clarity will come over the weekend.
OK, all right. Do you think the chances of success are relatively high? And you think, just looking at what we know so far, in your professional opinion, does it look as though they probably have caught something quite early here? I mean, it was obviously unexpected, wasn't it?
It was completely unexpected, so that suggests that it has been caught early. If it is a small bladder tumour, for example, it could be relatively minor treatment. It's difficult to give a prognosis and outcome without knowing all the details. And it's very difficult for doctors. All the time we're facing these decisions, and patients are very good about it. What's great about the King is and the palace, how they're handling it, is they've brought it out into the open, which is great for all the cancer patients all around the country.
Yes, indeed. What do you make of him going public with it then? Do you think that this is likely that it will make other people get checked? How important is that? I mean, every single family, really, unfortunately, in the UK is at some point touched by that horrible hand of cancer.
Absolutely. You know, when I started in oncology many years ago, we didn't tell people they had cancer. We had all sorts of lies that we told them about cysts, about infections. That's all gone. And what the King's doing is bringing it right out into the open. And that can only be for everybody's good. It helps to treat someone if you're being honest with them. To hide information from one family member and not others is very confusing for everybody.
Can I just ask you, how important will family medical history be here? You know, when you go in for a kind of procedure, very often they say to you, look, what's your family history? You know, that presumably could have led to some form of check for King Charles that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been done, and here we are.
About 10% of cancer has a family background. There's something in the genetics of the family that's resulted in the cancer. As we go forward with all the DNA analysis that's going on, we'll work out much more precisely what your risk is, Patrick, and you know, we'll work out everybody's risk. But at the moment, it's sort of in its infancy, so all we can look at is what family history you have of cancer. But I think it's important that everything is done openly, because if you don't know your granddad had cancer, you're not going to realise that there could be an inherited pattern that could change for the better the way that you're treated.
Absolutely. Look, Carol, thank you very, very much. That is Professor Carol Sikora there. She's the former director of the World Health Organisation's cancer programme, with some really fascinating insight there. I'm going to get the thoughts of my panel now. We've got editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. We've got former BBC chief political correspondent John Sargent and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Belinda, can I start with you, actually? This is something that is absolutely popping off in my inbox at the moment, which is about some of the, I think it's fair to say, vile comments about, oh, it's all right for the King, he gets to go private, he gets the best medical care. The rest of us, we're languishing on the NHS. What do you make of that?
Oh, I think it's quite cruel. I mean, to start attacking someone who's just announced they have cancer anyway, I think is very sad. But also, I don't have private health insurance. I use the NHS. I'm not envious or angry or hateful towards those who can. I wish them well. You know, they're not taking up a bed in the ward that I may use. I think all wishes for anyone who has cancer all over the world right now should just be good wishes, not this jealous, envious anger that it seems to trigger. And by the way, Republicans have had their day, Patrick. These angry anti-royalists, you know, peaked on the 30th of January 1649 when they beheaded King Charles, and the British people weren't having any of it. They rejected it and allowed Charles II to come back in because we love our royal family in this country. Yeah. Now, John, you think that potentially King Charles backed himself into a little bit of a corner here by initially saying he was going in for a benign enlarged prostate?
Well, I think that is the problem, you know, that once you start saying it's not this, it's that, and we're all fine, it's going well. But we all know that when something like this happens, they can find other things. So there's always an element of doubt. And there's even, of course, now an element of doubt as to how well he will get on with his treatment. So although everyone's saying, oh, you know, don't speculate, you know, that's all wrong, people are bound to speculate and people are bound to make comparisons with their own lives. But that's the strength of the royal family, that people do feel, we know this man, we know about families, we've got our own families to compare it with, and people often do that in a very good way. Yeah. So you can't have it both ways, saying, oh, he must be treated like a private individual. He's never been treated as a private individual.
In your time covering, you know, royal news, and there's been a heck of a lot of it. I mean, we were talking a bit off air about you were covering the evening of Diana's death, for example, I believe. We've never really seen anyone come out publicly about medical conditions in the royal family, have we?
No, not like this. And of course, it's marvellous. You know, at one level, this is grown-up sovereignty, isn't it? Grown-up behaviour, saying, look, I've got this, it's serious, it can be treated, rather than treating cancer as a kind of awful, sort of dreadful sort of word, isn't it? Like saying, don't go in there because they've got cancer. You know, and this is, after all, where Diana was so good, you know, of going into hospitals, and the whole idea that we should be so terrified, and it's sort of a voodoo curse. You know, don't talk to that person because they've got cancer. Well, so it's very important for the King to make it clear that, no, he's not going to do that.
Charlotte, what will this mean for the royal family in terms of them coming together now? We know that Harry is flying back. Meghan and the children, as we understand it, are not with him. There was actually quite a lot of controversy in the previous hour. People saying, look, why doesn't he bring the grandkids with him? You know, is it not fair that these children should have some form of relationship with our King?
No, and I think he probably will bring the grandchildren over, but we should be worried if that happens. Do you know what I mean? Because I think if there's a point where Meghan and the grandchildren come over, because we know that he does like to keep them in America and keep them away, you know, it might mean something really serious is going on. So I think we should actually be kind of relieved if she does stay behind. But, you know, he'll be dying to see his grandkids. He's a real softie, Prince Charles. He actually really loves his grandchildren, like, genuinely. You know, he loves playing with them. He loves being around his grandchildren. It's times like this when you think it's actually really sad he doesn't know them that well.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I'm just going to play now, because we went out and about earlier on and we were speaking to ordinary members of the great British public. We are the People's Channel, and this is a story. Whenever you get a royal story, you know, with the magnitude of this, and this, it's important to say as well, I don't think has ever really happened before, where, you know, a serving monarch has come out and revealed that they are battling a cancer diagnosis in the way that this has. So we decided that we wanted to just go and ask ordinary British people their thoughts and see if they wanted to pay a tribute to our king amid this cancer battle.
I find it quite shocking, and I wish him all the best. I think it's probably a symptom of them trying to be more open about this sort of thing these days. Yeah. And, you know, it'll encourage people to try and get themselves tested if they have similar thoughts, right, I suppose.
It was good that he's advertised it and he's put it out there for everyone else to see. Get better soon. Thank you for broadcasting it.
Get well soon and take plenty of rest.
That's so sad. I mean, you would think that of anybody, but I wish him well.
Well, I'm very sad to hear this, very sorry to hear, and I pray that he will recover, you know, the treatment.
He's got to have the best doctors. He's got the best chance. Age against him. Rest up, boy.
Belinda, an opportunity for the nation to come together, I think, isn't it, really?
Definitely, and I think it's certainly in the current climate where there's a lot of identity politics, division, and many people feel like everything they know and love about our traditions, culture, history may at times be under attack. I think it's wonderful for people to come together. It is the one thing, the flag, the monarchy, to come together and wish him well. And I think the wonderful people you've interviewed have shown such love. You know, you don't have to love every individual of the royal family to have great appreciation the monarchy. I deeply wish the king well on this, and of course Catherine as well, because she's had a rough time too.
Yeah, just a word on that, just very quickly. I know I'm going to get shouted out in my ear here because we are a bit over, but just a word on that. You know, Catherine is still struggling.
Yes, Catherine's done what Charles hasn't done, which is actually kept completely silent on what her condition is, which is perhaps maybe a good thing, because what we're learning from the Charles experience is he was very open and honest about the prostate enlargement, and now that he's rowing back on full openness, it's very conspicuous. But what Kate's doing is staying completely silent. But we do hear she's OK, she's at home. She might not have William by her side as much as she wants him to be, because he's going to be extremely overcommitted. He's back on duty on Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, no, indeed. We are going to be bringing you all of the very latest front pages as well, so you'll be hearing more from our panel then, because we'll see what kind of scoops, etc., that they've got on all of your newspaper front pages a little bit later on. But coming up, we will get exclusive reactions stateside to King Charles's cancer battle as Thomas Markle Jr, Meghan Markle's brother, joins me live for his take on the story that has rocked the world and the fact that his sister appears to be staying put in America throughout it. But first, royal author and journalist Phil Dampier has been ahead of the game when it comes to breaking massive royal scoops over the years. Phil is here live next to give the lowdown on what all of this means for the monarchy, how the King and Queen Camilla will be feeling, and how much he knew of this seismic development before the news broke earlier today. This is Patrick Christys Tonight, and we are only on GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney. Weekdays from 3 p.m.
Or they're trying to make it better, or they're trying to make it slower, a lot slower. Slower enough, in fact, for it to sufficiently allow the boats to start coming in to cause further political damage to Rishi Sunak.
Which it will do if it carries on.
Of course it will. And this is the Labour peers, the Lib Dem peers, and no doubt some of the Conservative wets, banding together, causing political damage to Rishi Sunak. And the longer it goes on, the worse it will be for the Conservative Party.
There's now a deadline on the Rwanda plan. It's got to start working this summer.
Starmer to have any electoral benefit for Rishi Sunak, because, of course, if the election is in November, by then the crossings will slow down. It's got to be up and running by about May or June, and then they'll take it from there.
Cool. And you have a crumb of comfort for us. Rishi Sunak met a Prime Minister.
Well, a crumb of comfort for those who want to stop the boat, certainly, or we'll get towards it. The PM today met Alexander De Croo, who's a Belgian Prime Minister. They've agreed a UK-Belgium law enforcement cooperation agreement. In short, that is a focus on surveillance and information, ultimately, which should help stop the boats. Not many boats make crossings from Belgium, but it's the kind of they can hopefully use law enforcement. These are the kind of deals which Sir Keir Starmer's talking about. If he becomes Prime Minister, he'll do more of these deals with countries on the continent, and this shows that the Tory PM, can do them too.
And there may be intelligence sharing of crime gangs that operate within Belgium. As you say, it's a much, much further distance, much more perilous across the North Sea. Very unlikely that people will be leaving in any great numbers from Belgium. But nevertheless, is this of note, or is it a token victory against a backdrop of domestic loss?
It's interesting they can do it with Belgium and not do it with the European Union, because so far we've been told the returns agreements can't be agreed with individual countries because they've got the European Union to talk to. Maybe this deal can be mirrored with France, and that might help with better cooperation, because basically after Brexit we're a sovereign country. We have to work on some areas more closely with our European neighbours.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, a little bit later on in the show, I will be bringing you the latest on the hunt for the alleged chemical attacker Abdul Azidi, and also the startling news that the Bibby Stockholm barge that is housing asylum seekers, apparently 40 of them, are looking to convert to Christianity. What is the Church of England's role now in our asylum system? But more now on King Charles's cancer diagnosis with royal author and journalist Phil Dampier, who has an intricate knowledge of the King's previous health ailments. Phil, thank you very much. Look, it's great to join you, although under obviously quite testing circumstances for our dear King. How will the monarch be tackling this latest hurdle? What are you hearing?
Yeah, good evening, Patrick. First thing to say, obviously, is to wish the King a speedy recovery. I'm sure we all do that. I mean, it's very worrying, this, isn't it? Just 17 months into his reign. I mean, I was told about 10 years ago, in fact, that his biggest fear, that then Prince Charles, was that he would actually die before his mother and never become king. Well, fortunately, of course, that never happened. But all the same, it is extremely worrying. I mean, everyone's saying today how fit he is, and he is fit. You know, he eats very well, he's still very slim, he can fit in military uniforms that he had 50 years ago. But he's actually had quite a history of medical things. I mean, I don't know if I've got time to go through it all, to be honest.
Well, please try, yeah.
Well, when he was 8, he had his tonsils out. When he was 12, he had a burst appendix. That was actually hushed up a bit, I think. That was quite serious. Of course, he's had several accidents involving polo. He fell off his horse and broke his arm famously in the 1990s. And I remember actually in Australia interviewing Sarah Key, a physiotherapist, who was telling us how she massaged his back. He's always suffered with back problems, and leapt into a pool with it to help him with his physio recovery from his broken arm. A few years ago, he started getting chest pain. He thought he was having a heart attack. He went to hospital. I think that was 2009. In fact, it was something to do with his gallbladder. He's had keyhole surgery on his knees. He's fallen off his horse while he's been out. I mean, the list doesn't go on, actually. So he has had his fair You can see that scar on his face, but that was another polo injury. He got whacked with a polo stick. And he does have this very red face. I'm told that sometimes he goes into friends' houses and he's actually smashed a window because he gets so hot at night that he wants to have fresh air. And I think that drives Camilla bonkers sometimes when he wants to have the windows open and she would like to have the central heating on. But he's got his problems, but hopefully he's going to get over this one. They've caught it early.
Well, indeed. And look, how do you think the royal family will actually be handling this at the moment? Because, you know, obviously we don't want to preempt anything. I'm certainly not wanting to get ahead of the game here or anything like that. But, you know, is this maybe a sign that actually William could be picking up more of the royal duties? How likely do you think it is that we will end up in a situation where King Charles, maybe, dare I say it, for whatever reason, steps to one side and allows William to come through and maybe have longer in post?
We may remember a couple of weeks ago the Queen of Denmark abdicated and King Frederick came to the throne. And I actually tweeted, I said, I didn't think I would rule that out for King Charles. A lot of people said, oh, you're talking rubbish. He's going to live till he's 95 like his mother. It would never happen. He would never abdicate. I'm not so sure. You know, if he does have a serious illness, if Camilla became ill, for example, in, you know, it's only 5 years' time, he'll be 80. I think it might not be a bad idea for him to hand on to William so that he can, you know, look after himself, enjoy some sort of retirement, and William and Kate can take over, who, let's be honest, are this more glamorous couple. Now, I don't say that is what's going to happen, but I wouldn't completely rule it out. And certainly the fact that William is coming back to work, I would say early. He said he was going to be sort of ducking out of jobs for a while to look after Kate. He's going to be back in action in the next couple of days. And I think that's an indication of how serious this all is, because it's all very, very much resting now on William and Kate's shoulders. And we hope Kate's going to get better soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another massive issue, isn't it? You know, Kate herself has not been well. It looks like there's going to be quite a long recovery there. What do you make of Prince Harry coming back home? Although it does look like he's coming back home without Meghan and without the kids.
I don't think he'll bring Meghan. I don't think he'll bring the kids at this particular occasion. It is an opportunity to mend some fences. Whether William will meet him or not, I have my doubts. I don't think he will. I think that probably be the last thing he wants at the moment when he's looking after Kate. I don't think he'd be particularly welcome there, which is a massive shame. But you never know. It might bring them together. But certainly, I think this is hopefully the first step of a reconciliation between Harry and his father.
Yeah. Does it not maybe indicate that it is actually pretty serious, the fact that Harry is coming home? I mean, I would have thought the coronation was quite serious, and Harry barely came home for that.
Yeah, I think it is serious, but we all know that relationships are very bad. But I think when it comes to health and you think your father's life might almost be in danger and that he is seriously ill, that is on a different level. And I mean, Harry must have been reflecting on all this in the last few months. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt for a change. I mean, I'm not his greatest fan, as you know, but you know, at the end of the day, he is his son. He still loves his son. Let's hope this can be the first step.
How do you think King Charles will actually be dealing with this? I mean, this is a massive shocker for anybody. It's dreaded. Unfortunately, well, the way things are, the law of averages or statistics, or however you want to phrase it, do mean that for the vast majority of us, we will at some point get a cancer diagnosis. Certainly, somebody within our family or our close circle of friends will also get a cancer diagnosis. But it is an absolute dread for people to hear those words, isn't it? As a person, how do you think King Charles will be dealing with this now?
As a person, you've noticed that. No, I think it's very good that he's been open about it. You know, I think it sets a good example. It might help other people who are going through a similar sort of thing. I think he's going to cope with it by trying to carry on. He's going to carry on with his work. He's still going to speak to the Prime Minister on a weekly basis. He's still going to be getting those boxes and signing all the official documents. Where it might have a major effect later in the year is I think he was obviously going to go to Canada. He was obviously going to go to Australia, New Zealand. That could be put on the back burner, and that is a shame, because obviously all those countries where he's still head of state were looking forward to seeing him and Camilla, and they were due to go to the Commonwealth Heads of Government conference in Samoa. So that's later in the year. But if he makes a good recovery, that might still be on. That could be a major problem. But apart from that, I think he'll just try and carry on as much as he can.
Brilliant. Look, thank you very, very much, Phil. Always a pleasure to have you on. That is royal author and journalist Phil Dampier, just running us through some of the King's previous health issues there, wishing him well and having a look ahead as well as to the potential for reconciliation when Prince Harry touches back down in Britain soon. But, as we were discussing there, Prince Harry is jetting back to the UK to be with his father. Meghan Markle stays at home in the US. Now, her brother Thomas Markle Jr, will join me live a little bit later on to give his exclusive reaction. What could the possibility be for a chance of reconciliation there? What would his message to his sister be? But tomorrow's newspaper front pages are coming your way very, very shortly. We're also going to be having a look at the very latest for the chemical attacker alleged on the run at the moment, Abdul Azidi, and have a little look as well at the Church of England's role when it comes to our asylum system. Can it really be the case that there are 40 people on the Bibby Stockholm barge who genuinely want to convert to Christianity? The Archbishop, Justin Welby, has a heck of a lot to answer for. It's Patrick Christys tonight, and we are only on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Chris, what is the preferred way in which the police go about their business at the moment? There's these two strands of thinking. Evidence-based policing versus bobbies on the beat.
It's very, very difficult. The problem that police have got, basically, is that they're too thinly spread, and it's too much is expected of them. There's a long list, isn't it? Every month we hear police need to do more about this, police need to do more about that, and police do their best. They're overwhelmed with bureaucracy. I mean, when I was a young PC, if I took a shoplifter in, then I'd be in and out within an hour. You take a shoplifter in now, and you're doomed for the rest of your shift for 6 or 7 hours dealing with the bureaucracy. Police want to get back in those communities because community policing is really the core of policing. But such are the demands on their time at the moment, and the bureaucracy, and the fact that they are struggling now to retain experienced officers. People are hemorrhaging out of the police, and new recruits coming in haven't got that experience, and there's a good chance they may not stay anyway. So there's all sorts of problems. And for the Home Secretary to glibly say he wants more done, frankly, clearly shows he's got no understanding of the pressure police are under, and of course the constant criticism that they face across the board. Very rarely do you actually hear of police officers getting praised for acts of bravery or acts of compassion. So there's a problem with morale in the police force, and clearly a problem with the Home Secretary, who needs to get out there and talk to officers on the front line who frankly are struggling. And last night, of course, was a graphic example.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News, and it's time to bring you tomorrow's news tonight in our paper review. The very first front pages have just been handed to me. Right, we go with the Metro. King has cancer. Doc's discovery during surgery. Harry flying in to see his father. Let's go to the Independent. King Charles is diagnosed with cancer. A picture of him and Camilla. Palace makes shock announcement. The Daily Star. King Chaz. I have cancer. Interesting turn of phrase there, given the seriousness of this particular issue. They're also going to go to The Guardian now. There's a rather large picture of Taylor Swift on the front page there. And women dominating the Grammys. They also do mention King Charles diagnosed with cancer, Palace says. So there we go. That's the Guardian's take on events. The Eye, senior royal set to stand in while Charles steps back. So Princess Anne, they've got a picture of Prince Andrew maybe there. I think it's hard for me to make out, actually. I've only got a small copy of it. Definitely Prince William there. How cancer survival rates have improved for older men. That's in their health section. They've also got an opinion piece. Their disciplined lifestyle will stand the King in good stead for recovery. The King and Queen leave the London clinic is their picture. The Sun, King, I have cancer. And that's the picture that the Palace wanted everybody to put out as well. They say full story, pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So, regular viewers and listeners, it is not only us here at GB News who have been using this story regularly. Nation shock as treatment start. He told William and Harry himself personally. The Mirror, King's cancer shock. Prostate op revealed new issue. Treatment has already started. Harry flying back to visit Dad. So that's what's dominating all of the front pages. Now, shortly, I'm going to be giving you an update on this missing asylum seeker who is allegedly responsible for this chemical attack that took place in Clapham. How is that guy still on the run? There is a £20,000 reward for information that leads to his capture and for his whereabouts. The police are issuing quite strong statements about the idea that people might be hiding him. I'm also going to be discussing with my panel as well serious questions about the role that the Church of England is playing in our asylum system. Are they responsible for helping asylum seekers get into Britain, to stay in Britain, create asylum claims whilst they're actually in Britain as well? Look, I'm going to go to that right now, actually. And Belinda, I will start with you. Belinda DeLucy joins us on the panel. When it comes to the Church of England and the role that they are allegedly playing with our asylum claims, the big issue for me is that you can be an asylum seeker in Britain, you can have your asylum claim turned down once or twice, and then once you convert to Christianity, you can create an asylum claim whilst you're here. And the Church of England is helping people with that, aren't they?
So what I would say, although I am disappointed at the Church of England, if they do have a role in facilitating bogus asylum claims with this quick conversion, it is the government that's in power and in charge. It is the Home Office. They are only working within the laws. So if the law is that you can convert to Christianity or suddenly say you're gay after arriving and saying you're not, that is the problem. That needs to be cut down. And there is nothing Christian whatsoever about prioritising men coming from the safety of France when we have a limited pot of funds over women and children in UN camps. There's something deeply immoral and un-Christian at how our asylum system is being abused, but I do not put full responsibility of the Church of England. It is on the heads of the Conservative government, 100%. They've chosen to chain us to bad, out-of-date, dangerous human rights law. But allow all this.
I mean, so a bishop has now attacked Suella Braverman. This is the news that's just landing in front of me here. A bishop has attacked, not physically, Suella Braverman. That'd be a story, wouldn't it? She said that the Church of England were fuelling fake asylum claims. Well, yesterday, the former Home Secretary said that during her tenure, she'd become aware of churches around the country facilitating industrial-scale bogus asylum claims. Charlotte, I was reading earlier on, because actually I was going to originally lead the show with this story, but I've got a scoop that I'm going to make you wait for tomorrow for. But part of it was around Europe, going as far back as 2016, they were seeing even mass baptisms of people from Muslim countries on the continent. And you think, there's a certain naivety here, surely, when it comes to certain religious figures across the continent, to think that people really are seriously converting to Christianity for any reason other than to try and stay in Europe, I think.
Well, I think you're being very generous to say naivety, because clearly that's a red flag. If you're suddenly baptising loads of Muslims, basically.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
And it reminds me a little bit of when... Do you remember when men were coming over and being taught in classrooms because they were saying they were children, but they had beards and they were men? But I have to say, we didn't really attack the teachers and blame the teachers at that moment.
Yeah.
And maybe we should be a bit cautious to suddenly blame bishops. But surely you raise a red flag, you know, and being willfully naive is not ideal. You need to sort of flag it with someone when you're having these claims, surely.
John, do you think that the Archbishop, Justin Welby, should be speaking out about this? Yeah, I would strongly recommend a suspension for the approval of some of these asylum claims in relation to Christianity. We have the Liverpool maternity bomber, who had converted to Christianity after a couple of failed attempts. Now, this alleged Clapham attacker, who, again, is believed to have converted to Christianity after a couple of times, can they really be sure about the people they're vouching for? I mean, if this was any business and something was going this badly wrong, you would suspend proceedings, you would look into it, you would make sure it didn't happen again.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think there's obviously, if you're an asylum seeker, you're on, they've had the people on the barge, you know, the barge in Dorset.
Yeah.
And apparently 20 of them are applying to become Christian.
Yeah.
Well, it's not surprising because they know perfectly well if they're from Afghanistan that this will mean that they cannot be sent back to Afghanistan. They might not be anyway, but to say, oh, by the way, I've just converted to Christianity, will I be okay in Afghanistan? I mean, you think, wait a minute. This whole thing is completely ridiculous.
A lot of them are saying they're from Iran as well, and they can prove that in Iran, obviously, Christians are treated particularly badly as well. I would just urge people to watch this space when it comes to this show, because I do have a big scoop on this for tomorrow. We were originally going to do it tonight. I'm sure most people can understand we were overtaken somewhat by events, and we didn't want that story to get lost in all of the news about the King. But another aspect to this story is the still remarkably missing, Abdul Yazidi, who's believed to be responsible for this chemical attack that has left a woman with life-changing injuries, believed to be the loss of at least one eye. He obviously has been walking through London, at least in part anyway, with the issue with his face there as well. Belinda, I'll start with you. The police have now slapped a £20,000 reward to the public for information here. A man has been arrested and since bailed who allegedly was helping this guy, Abdul Yazidi. Do you think he's getting help? And I suspect this is the story that's going to come in the days ahead, which I think will be a massive scandal as well, if this guy is getting help from certain people to stay hidden.
Oh, I really worry if that's the case. I find it quite scary. I think it's dangerous to have a huge number of men coming from very misogynistic cultures, deeply violent cultures that treat women very badly. We have bad eggs here already, don't get me wrong, but to encourage them to come over here by allowing... I think he came over on a bus, on a lorry, sorry?
A lorry.
On a lorry. He should have been deported immediately. Whether Afghanistan is safe or not, I don't care. We have to have a deportation mechanism that protects the people and women of this country especially. I think it would be very sad if he's having help, but I wouldn't be surprised because some communities are much stronger in terms of culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems is because we don't know where he is, it's possible, all things are possible. Maybe he's been attacked by somebody, maybe he's been killed, maybe he's committed suicide. I mean, I'm sorry, I've got no evidence for this, so I don't give the impression that I know, but that's where you've got to be very careful in a situation like this, just coming to too many conclusions before we know.
I mean, look, what we do know is that he's not been caught or found, right? And I think the Met have serious questions to answer as well about why did they not immediately release whatever pictures that they had of this guy. I refuse to believe that had the public, the wider public, bear in mind he was getting on and off public transport, he was walking around shops. If they didn't know immediately who this guy was, surely we could have snared him by now. But again, watch this space when it comes to the very latest on this story. That's it for my panel for now. We're going back to them a little bit later on. But up next, as Prince Harry jets back to the UK to be with his father, Meghan Markle, as we understand it, is staying at home in the US with her children. How is America digesting the news that Charles is battling cancer? Meghan's brother, Thomas Markle Jr, joins me live and exclusive stateside for the first reaction from across the pond. I'll have a few more front pages for you as well as Christys tonight. We're only on GB News.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
What you've got to do is, it's a collective. You've got to look like a meteorologist. Nobody out there is necessarily going to be a meteorologist, but what I do on a daily basis is I look globally. I look at what we've got in terms of the track of weather that we've had in the UK. So if you go back a couple of years and we go back to the heat wave of July, August 2022, 40.3 degrees, there's a dot in the landscape, and before then there was other incidents going on. Now that was a huge dot because that was extreme temperatures, and then we, since then, last summer, although we didn't get that kind of record, we saw months with records, various months, May and June and September and October, all-time records. So another dot, and then you're looking again globally. What's going on globally? What's going on in China, in USA, in Africa, now in Australia, for example? Records falling like 9 pins. So when these storms come along, you've got to say, OK, would they have happened anyway? The answer is probably yes. They probably would have done. But when you start getting where we're up to with Jocelyn is number 10, then that's not the record. The record is 11 named storms, 2015-16. So we've been there before, but only a few years ago. So these things are starting to mount up. And do you know what? On the can of climate change, climatologists, better people than me, people who study this expertly, and they look at it and they say, OK, what we're going to get with extra dimension of heat in the atmosphere, which energy and heat that basically means that you've got more intense storms potentially that can carry more water. What do you get? You get higher wind velocities and you get more water and or snow. We've just gone through a period where parts of this country have been deluged and flooded for the first time.
Yes.
It's Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News and it's time to return to more of the front pages, hot off the press for us. I'm going in with the Times, OK? They say the King has cancer. Yeah, Palace says that Charles is wholly positive. William to take on more commitments, Harry to fly back. We go to the Telegraph now. Same picture of the King. All engagements cancelled. King says he's optimistic as he can be. Type of cancer has not been revealed. Diagnosis follows prostate surgery. They also have a story at the bottom there. Suspected chemical attacker may be dead. If we have a little bit of time after my next guest, we'll return to that. I'm going to go now to the Daily Express. King starts treatment for cancer. The monarch is wholly positive. Look, obviously, as one would expect, there is a theme on the front pages for tomorrow. This massive news that our King does sadly have cancer. But I'm going to go stateside now for an exclusive interview with Meghan Markle's brother and Prince Harry's brother-in-law. It's Thomas Markle Jr. Thank you very, very much. Now, it's understood that the Duke of Sussex, that's Prince Harry, is going to fly back to the UK shortly. As we understand it, we've been told by sources very close to them that Meghan Markle will not be coming with him and they will not be bringing the children, Lilibet and Archie. Thomas, can I ask, why do you think that is? Do you think she's worried about being booed?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't think it's the right time for her to go across, actually.
You don't think it's the right time for her to go across? Sorry.
No. I think, just with just the news and everything, there's been so much damage and hurt done to the royal family, my family. I think that's going to be a while before she can get over there. But it's the right thing for Harry to do. Nothing else matters when there's a family emergency, when it comes to a health issue, especially. That's the most important thing, and everything needs to be set aside, and that should be dealt with first.
Do you think this is a really good opportunity out of something really desperately sad, obviously, and very concerning? It's a good opportunity, isn't it, for rifts to be healed now?
Yeah, I don't think it's the right circumstance, though. I think rifts have to be healed, sorted out the way in a certain manner. I mean, it's going to take a lot of time to repair your reputation and your relationship based on the damage and the hurt that's been done. But I don't think a medical emergency should be the basis for the mending of a relationship that's bad.
I mean, a lot of people will be thinking that it's absolutely right for Harry to come back. I think it is, undeniably, and Harry is doing the right thing there. I think some people, to be fair as well, will think it's absolutely right that Meghan Markle does stay where she is and that she maybe takes care of Lilibet and Archie. The only issue maybe that I would have with that, as some people have raised already tonight on this show, is what kind of relationship do Lilibet and Archie really have with their grandfather, King Charles? And maybe this will be an opportunity for them to actually see him. What do you think?
Well, that's a very good point. Rightly so. Every grandfather should be able to see his grandchildren, including my father. He should be able to see his grandchildren. And to hold them back is the worst thing you can do to a family. It's like you're driving wedges in between a relationship that should just should be there.
I know that your father has unfortunately had a few health issues as well, and Harry and Meghan, I don't think, were particularly involved there, were they?
No, there was no contact after his heart attack a few years ago, and there was no contact, no calls after a stroke a couple of years ago, and that's just not right, because everything should be set aside when it comes to a family emergency, and that's the top priority, no matter what you have going on or what your differences are. And for them not to reach out or do anything, that's going to be hard to repair. That's sincerely. I mean, how would you sell that?
Do you think there is any chance of reparation there?
It would take quite a long time. It would have to be sincere. I mean, almost on the level of a public apology. But I mean, it's very hurtful, and it should never be that way.
Yeah. No.
My father has always left the door open for reconciliation, and nothing has came out of that. But it's just sad overall. It's just sad.
No, indeed. And look, do you have any kind of message for our king and the royal family who are obviously struggling and grappling with this news, as our nation is here at the moment? And what's the kind of reaction been like where you are stateside?
Of course, I get all this news first, and it's on our news here. But our deepest sympathy and thoughts go out to the king and the royal family. It's a very difficult time, and that's not to be taken lightly. It's a very serious matter, and Godspeed.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, Thomas, thank you very, very much. It's been great to have you on the show and to have a little chat with you as well. That's Thomas Markle Jr. there. He's Prince Harry's brother-in-law. Meghan Markle's brother doesn't really think that this is the right time for some kind of family reconciliation, because it is coming, obviously, off the back of, a very serious illness. An announcement there. Thomas Markle Jr., thank you very, very much. I'm joined by my panel again. He's editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, former BBC political correspondent, chief political correspondent, sorry, John Sargent, I demoted you there. And former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. I'm just going to pick up on a story that's at the bottom of the Telegraph tomorrow, OK? And this is the suspected chemical attacker may be dead. I'm just going to read a little bit of it out. An Afghan asylum seeker suspected of carrying out a chemical attack in Clapham may be dead after last being seen near Southwark Bridge, police have said. His bank card apparently has not been used since Wednesday. Yesterday, Scotland Yard said a 22-year-old man has been arrested and bailed on suspicion of assisting him. I believe, actually, I do have a statement from the Metropolitan Police, which I am just going to read out for you now. So our message here is clear. If you are harbouring a ZD, we will find and arrest you. This man is a dangerous individual who has changed forever the lives of a family. We are doing everything we can to trace him, and that includes targeting his associates. We believe there are people helping him. John, this is astonishing, really, if somebody could even help this guy, this alleged monster.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think it makes you be sort of clear about this, because usually what happens, if someone is named and photographed like this, it doesn't take, usually it's sort of 5 hours, within 5 hours or something, or some very short time, people say, yes, I've seen that guy, and that's it. And it does make you think after a bit. It's always so difficult proving a negative, what has happened to him, we don't know. But the idea that he's holed up not using his bank card, it's interesting that detail like that is very telling, isn't it?
Well, it implies he's either literally just being harboured in someone's flat or house and kept away from everything else, or that something else has happened.
But I think there's another point, too, about this. You feel with these attacks like this, they are premeditated, and you do wonder, it's not just, I'll go around and just spray you.
Yeah.
It's sort of, if I spray you, you could be badly hurt, and I'm damn well going to do this, and I've been sending off for this horrible, corrosive liquid, and I'm now going to take this. It's all premeditated, and so it makes you think that maybe it was a suicidal thing. I'm going to go there, I'm going to harm this man. These children weren't his children, apparently.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to commit suicide. It would fit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, look, just a quick update as well. Apparently the victim involved in this might lose her sight in one eye. We are out of time for this evening, I'm afraid. Can I just thank you all very, very much? We do normally do a Greatest Britain and a Union Jackass. I think given the news about King Charles, it doesn't really seem fitting, but we are going to make King Charles, of course, today's Greatest Britain. So there we go. Look, thank you to my wonderful panel who filled in at incredibly short notice. Headliners will be there tomorrow for all of your news from tomorrow. I'm Patrick Christys. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Next up, like I said, it is Headliners. I will see you tomorrow for a couple of absolutely massive scoops. Stay tuned.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, Alex Burkle here again with your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst for many, especially in the south, it's going to stay mild as we go into tomorrow, further north we have some colder air pushing its way southwards. That's coming in behind a front which has been lingering across Scotland for a little while now and has already brought some significant rain. That heavy persistent rain is going to continue to edge a little bit further southwards overnight, pushing into southern Scotland, northern England and also Northern Ireland too. To the north of this then, that colder air, and so we are likely to see some showers turning wintry and some icy patches first thing Tuesday morning. A cold start here, much milder further south, a cloudy picture keeping temperatures up overnight, many places starting the day in double figures. As we go through the rest of the day on Tuesday, that rain continues to feed further southwards, spreading into more central parts of England and across Wales, where the rain could be pretty heavy at times. Staying drier further south, though largely cloudy. Any sunshine is going to be pretty limited. Sunnier skies further north across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, though watch out for a scattering of wintry showers and a real north-south split in our temperatures, mildest in the south, highs of around 14 or 15 Celsius. Wednesday's looking like a largely dry but rather chilly day. However, as we go into Thursday, the potential for a system to push into cold air across the UK, bringing the risk of some significant snow. There is some uncertainty as to exactly where and when we're going to see the heaviest snow, but at the moment it looks most likely across central parts, and we do have a warning in force, with many places seeing a chilly feel.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsored.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Welcome to the show. Superb stuff, great footage. So you're right in the thick of it there. What's the mood on the ground?
Well, I've left there now. I've actually now come to that EU Council summit that I was talking about. It's still pretty chaotic. The entire city of Brussels has been completely clogged with these tractors, sort of three abreast in most of the roads across the city. The people of Brussels aren't particularly happy. I mean, this is sort of reminiscent for some people of the Just Stop Oil protests, you know, people gluing themselves. People are unable to get to hospital appointments, and there's a lot of upset about the destruction that's happening on the streets of Brussels today. But on the other side, there's also the protests, which the farmers are saying that EU green laws simply are not able to fit with what they need to do to keep their businesses going. And just before the protests happened, we saw the European Commission actually make some concessions to the farmers' protests. And this is on the demands that were put on them to set aside somewhere in the region of 5% of their land for regrowing for biodiversity. A lot of the farmers have said that's not possible, and the European Commission has said that they can delay that coming in. So they have won a small concession with these protests.
And Jack, there's a feeling as well, a huge dissatisfaction that the European Union has managed to find 50 billion euros in aid to send to Ukraine, and yet farmers in particular are on the receiving end of net zero targets, taxation on diesel and endless red tape. So many farmers, Jack, saying they're measuring ditches to see if they have to drain them or not. There are minimum requirements on the width of battery hen enclosures. endless red tape, as Jeremy Clarkson pointed out in Clarkson's farm in Britain. They've simply had enough, and they're shouting, Ursula von der Leyen, we are here.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You're with GB News and the main news tonight. King Charles has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. The diagnosis coming after successful treatment for an enlarged prostate, during which a separate issue of concern was identified by surgeons. Well, many have been wishing the King well online. The Prime Minister saying he wished the King a full and speedy recovery and said he'll no doubt be back to full strength in no time. And the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying on behalf of his party, I wish His Majesty all the very best for his recovery. Well, we understand the King will begin a schedule of treatment and continue to undertake official paperwork, although his doctors have advised him at this time to cancel public-facing duties. Buckingham Palace officials said tonight the King is feeling wholly positive about his schedule of treatment. And in another breaking strand of news connected to this evening, a source close to the Duke of Sussex said he has spoken with his father about the diagnosis and will likely travel to the UK to visit him in the coming days. We understand Prince William and Prince Harry learning of their father's cancer diagnosis directly from King Charles himself. And in the United States, President Biden told reporters he'd heard about the diagnosis and planned to speak to the King later. Well, GB News went onto the streets of London tonight to ask how they felt, how people felt upon hearing the news.
I think it's very sad. I think it's that, it's coming a year after the coronation. And so I think my thoughts are with him, with the family.
It's a bit of a shock. Like, I'm genuinely heartfelt thoughts.
That's so sad. I mean, you would think that of anybody, but I wish him well.
Well, I'm very sad to hear this, very sorry to hear, and I pray that he will recover, the treatment.
He's got to have the best doctors, he's got the best chance, age against him, rest up, boy.
Londoners talking about King Charles's cancer diagnosis this evening. Well, in other news today, police say the mother, doused with a corrosive liquid, may lose the sight in her right eye. That's according to the Metropolitan Police. And the manhunt is still on tonight to catch the suspected chemical attacker, Abdul Azidi. The Met Police saying a 22-year-old man was arrested today on suspicion of assisting an offender. He's since been released on bail. The force has also said it has recovered Azidi's mobile phone and is still focusing its search on South London. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. I'm joined by the People's Gammon, Paul Cox, and the People's Princess, Cressida Wetton.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
nice upgrade. All right.
Self-appointed gammon, right, Paul? This is how you decided to lean into that.
Into it. That's exactly what's happened, yeah. People were calling me it, and I've just lent in.
What you need is to get in front of the red version of the backdrop, because I've always found whenever I'm in front, I don't know if am I in front of the red? Yeah, here I am. You see, it really brings the gammon out of your cheeks, whereas you look quite pasty.
Need some rose, that's what I mean.
Right, let's take a look at the front pages, which are rather more sombre than we've maybe set them up to be. The Mirror has the King's cancer shock. The Telegraph, the King has cancer. And the Guardian, King Charles diagnosed with cancer, Palace says. A photograph, on the other hand, from the Grammys. The Times, the King has cancer. There he is standing there. The iNews, King Charles diagnosed with cancer. There he is with Camilla. And finally, the Daily Star, who